How do you define the word success? Welcome to the Relive the Moments podcast. I'm John Lim. Welcome back to Relive the Moments. I'm really excited to have our guest here today. He's a brother from another mother, a dear friend of mine, a business partner, and someone that helped me get to where I am today. Seth Kaplan is the co-founder and CEO at WinLocal. Seth's marketing experience began in 2008, marketing his own products and services in the real estate space, and went on to help some of the biggest names in the industry leverage social media to run targeted marketing campaigns, including Zillow, Realtor.com, and Freddie Mac. Last year alone, he and his team ran over 5,000 campaigns across the Meta network on behalf of local businesses and helped hundreds of local businesses leverage today's most popular technologies to drive engagement with their clients, prospects, and referral partners. I'm so happy to have Seth here, and I'm really excited for this conversation. Welcome to the show, Seth.
Hello.
How do you define success?
How do I define success? I think success, depending on the context, but overall, my general definition of success is being able to do things that you love with people that you love and make a difference for people that you enjoy working with.
All right. So how would you measure success in that definition?
Well, I think you can measure it in a bunch of different ways. Personally, I measure my success by the level of freedom I have. So one of the things that's always been important to me, more so than purely financial success, is the freedom to do the things I want to do when I want to do them with the people I want to do them with. So that's not an exact measurement, but it's like a sliding scale. You know, sometimes it's more, sometimes it's a little less, but ultimately, you know, you wake up in the morning and you say, all right, would I rather be doing this or have a job where I had to show up and do this, even if I made a little more money? I'd still rather be doing this.
All right. So freedom is extremely important. That's why you are an entrepreneur. Otherwise, like you said, having the job doing this and make some more money is, everyone should take that who does not want freedom as their driving factor success, because being an entrepreneur is extremely difficult. And we are all probably legally insane
A little bit.
for doing it. There was a report I watched. I read like, if you look at the characteristics of somebody who's bipolar and you go down the list of like all things that make you bipolar, and then you put side by side things that you have to deal with as an entrepreneur, you'd be like, wait a minute, these things are way too close together of the things that I have to think about. A lot of
similarities.
And do. Yeah. Okay. So, because obviously if freedom is not your driving force and you're not in a position where you can make a ton of money doing it on your own, then in my opinion, having a job is always the better way to go.
I mean, I think there's a lot of amazing benefits to having a job with a company that you like and feel good about and want to represent, and have all the security that that company offers, and have the ability to go home at the end of the day or week without any of the logistical things that come with ownership of a company, and especially day-to-day ownership of the company. Like if you can go home at the end of the day and not feel like you need to look at your emails or your texts and just like completely unplug from 5 to 9, I think that's amazing. I think people who can find a situation like that should absolutely take it.
So how often have it come across your brain of like, this man, these are one of these days that I wish I could just be a 5 to 9er, right? Like take that 5 to 9 and just come home and not have to do anything. Like how often does that happen to you?
I mean, over the course of the last 17 years, it varies, but I would say usually like once a quarter, where it's like a prolonged thought. Not like, oh, that's a cool company. I wonder if they have any jobs that would pay me triple what I'm making right now, and I could do it in less time and less stress. Probably like you see something cool and you're like, oh, I could see myself doing that.
Like the ad that pops on LinkedIn, like, Seth, you look really good working here at ESPN.
Yeah, or you listen to a podcast and they're talking about some cool new innovative company. And you're like, oh, I wonder if they need like a director of sales or something. Like I could sell that for sure. But like those come and go, right? Like those aren't real. I think I would say on average, probably like once a quarter where you're like, all right, got to do a little heat check. Is this still worth it?
Right. I think in the world that we live in, we always feel it's worth it. And that's probably a curse that most entrepreneurs have where they hold on too long. But I think it's fair to say, like, there's plenty of times where you're just having a day, a week, especially post-COVID, right? Getting out of COVID and then trying to rebuild and putting all that together without the same fuel that larger companies have. I found myself of saying, all right, a job wouldn't be so bad. And then after like 3 minutes of a daydream / meditation of what that looks like, I'm like, yeah, I'd probably get fired in 24 hours. So I might as well stay focused on what I have going on and not get out of this daydream as quick as humanly possible.
Yeah, I think the daydreams are fun, right? Like daydreaming is fun. You drive down the highway, you see the Mega Millions sign, and it's like 480 million. Like, I got to buy a ticket, right? And one of the barometers that I always use is like when I see those signs, and there's a couple that based on my drive routes, I see probably once a week, once every other week, right? Is if I start daydreaming about what I would do after I won the lotto, and 5 out of the top 10 things are I would reinvest in this in the business, or I would hire this person, or I would do this marketing program, or I would buy this company, or I would add this technology, then you're probably still on the right track. Because if you won 480 million, you probably wouldn't have to work anymore, most people. But like usually the top 5 or 6 things I think about after like, oh, I would take like 7 days, go somewhere where I couldn't spend more than like $40 a day and just let it not be weird for a minute, usually are things related to how I would use that money to make the business better.
Right. Listen, first of all, anyone who hits 480 million, even after taxes, I'm pretty sure they don't ever have to work again, to your point.
Yeah.
But I think part of what you just said about the first thoughts are, hey, how much money can I reinvest into this or to that? Primarily knowing you so long is because you get to build up the people that work for the companies that you built. So it helps their lives. Like, it's not just about your life. Like, we can all as entrepreneurs probably have an easier path having that job that we talked about. But then I always felt like there's so much more we can do for others that have worked for us throughout the years and helped them grow. What makes you so passionate about being an entrepreneur other than so-called freedom, which in the early days we have less of?
Yeah, I think part of the freedom is the ability to impact the end result, right? Like one of the trade-offs to me is that when you're working in and for a company that you've started, you have a significant ownership stake in, you are directly involved in determining the outcome, good or bad. You made the decision, you got to live with it. If it's good, great. If it's not, you can pivot and go a different direction and try again. So that's part of the freedom that personally I live for, right? Like I love that nature of business. And I'm okay being wrong some of the time because I know it was my or our decision to go in that direction and learn from it and then come back better. Going back to your question though, of like, the continued trade-offs, I think it's an amazing opportunity to be able to create something that provides value not only to the people that you serve and makes their life better, whether it's a B2B product, which is a lot of the stuff that I've done in my career, and some B2C stuff, right? but also the people that work for the company. So, hey, can you, work with someone that is fresh out of college and give them a chance to learn and grow over 2-3 years and then let them go on to be something great in another space? That's awesome. Or having the opportunity to work with people for a prolonged period of time, 7, 10, 15, 17 years, and see the growth in them over that time period. I think all of those are great things. And I think it's different when you have ownership and when it's a, self-built company as opposed to, I worked for Wachovia Bank for 8 months. Like, no one cared about me. I made some friends, but they left and went on, and I left, and we're still connected on LinkedIn, but there's no real relationship.
I remember you in the bank, man. I cared about you.
Absolutely.
I came into that bank.
Right, but I can't name more than 1 or 2 people that were quote unquote clients of mine at the bank. Like, I remember certain instances of helping people and, whatever the little thing was, from a checking account to a refinance on a mortgage to a annuity or whatever it was. I remember instances, but there were no real relationships with those people. It wasn't it was very transactional, right? You're dealing with a institution the size of what was then Wachovia Bank. The example I like to give people is I got that job because out of college I sold insurance and investments, and I got licensed to do all of those things, and I was working commission only, and that was tough, but it was the best sales training in the world. But after about 12, 18 months, I realized I hated the job and I knew I didn't want to do it. And so a guy that I worked with there was like, hey, why don't you go get a job at a bank? They're paying people with all your licenses $60,000 a year just to show up, plus commission on refinances and annuities and all the stuff you can sell. And they'll give you full benefits, and you only have to work 7 to 3.
Right.
I was like, how come you didn't tell me this 6 months ago? Buddy?
There's that job kicking in, right?
Right.
There's the job, right?
And at that time, it was perfect timing, right? Like, I had run the course. I knew it wasn't something that I wanted to do forever. I had gotten probably the best sales training in the world at the time, because you don't make any money if you don't sell anything. And then went to work for a bank. And it was great. Like, showed up, did what they asked, made a bunch of money, but there was no substance to it. And then you get into a situation where you have 3 different bosses all asking about your TPS reports, AKA checking accounts, on a 2.5-hour conference call on a Tuesday when you should be refining mortgages because you're part of the biggest refi boom in the history of the world, right? And you're like, what are these people talking about? Like, they're so clueless. Like, I just want to get down to business, like get to work, get on the phone. And, I don't know how we went down that rabbit hole, but here we are.
Well, listen, I mean, and we'll get back to the younger version of Seth, but to your point at Wachovia, which probably 2 people don't even know what Wachovia is.
It was purchased by Wells Fargo during the great financial crisis in 2008.
Yeah.
You can Google it, guys.
Talking about that refi
or ask
boom.
ChatGPT.
The refi boom that caused the
mortgage
crash. And yeah. Which,
a lot of loose lending.
But speaking about the mortgage crash, and your since it's relevant to the topic of today, your friend Michael Burry, who you like very much, and his Big Short. How do you feel about his current State of the Union on Palantir and NVIDIA?
Personally, I don't understand it. I don't know a lot about it, but I did see the news article where they're saying he shorted those 2 stocks specifically out of all of the AI and technology stocks that are out there.
He bought $1 billion in puts.
Right. So big short position. I'm no longer licensed for insurance and investment products. This is not financial advice. And I haven't been in a very long time. We're talking 2008. So I personally don't understand it because it seems to me like of the ecosystem, those two companies have very tangible, real products and services that they're actively selling and providing value to the rest of the market for. So I don't get it, but he clearly has a track record of being right. So time will tell.
Right. He does. It's kind of like I look at him as a gambler
Right.
who every time you want to see it, like, he's probably wrong this time. He's right on the crypto. He's right on.
And you
on
can
the
be
Big
right a
Short,
bunch of
like-
times and also be wrong this time,
Yeah.
right? Like my guess is this is not his only trade. It could be part of a bigger trade
Yeah.
and a hedge against something he's long on. So who knows? What he does with his money is entirely his choice.
Yeah. Well, listen, I know you were a fan of his, so we'll step back from his side. He is an interesting character, though.
Yeah, I mean, I don't really know anything about him other than I think the book, The Big Short, was an excellent book. I think the movie was awesome. I don't know much about him other than that.
Yeah, he's a fascinating guy. Okay, so let's get back to reliving some moments.
Yeah,
And let's talk about your childhood.
sure.
What is a moment in your childhood that you think helped shape you to who you are today?
Ooh, that's a good question. I mean, there's a lot of moments, obviously, as any child growing up will have. One moment that helped shape who I am. Tough question. You should have sent like a list of things so I could have prepared for this.
That's not fun, man. It's on the spot. You got we get
I'll
deep and
I'll give you a good one.
yeah.
So when I was a kid, we took a family trip to Costa Rica. And my dad had a friend who was Costa Rican, so we went down there. He showed us around. And it was a pretty cool vacation. I was probably 7 or 8 at the time. And we went up to the mountains and we stayed in an Airbnb, which I think Airbnb didn't exist. What I meant to say was bed and breakfast. So it was like this big house where they basically turned it into a bed and breakfast up in the mountains. And it was awesome. It was like something out of a movie, right? Like on the way up there, you pass volcanoes and the whole thing. Costa Rica is a beautiful country. For anyone who's not been, put it on your list. And while we were up there, I went outside and, they had all these animals and there were a herd of sheep. I think they were sheep. I guess they had to be sheep. And I was just kind of walking around, exploring a little bit. And I guess I got a little too close to the sheep. Like there was a lot of them, a couple hundred sheep. And they were at a higher elevation than I was. And I was like kind of walking towards them. And I guess I did something that disturbed their peace. So they started stampeding towards me. And in unison, right? Like hundreds of sheep running towards me. And I was frozen because as a kid from the Bronx, one does not encounter flocks of sheep on a daily basis. So I didn't really know what to do, right? And they were like coming right at me. And I was frozen. And then instead of getting trampled and killed by these sheep, luckily they had this little dog. And the dog heard the sheep and he came running around and like jumped in front of me and literally herded the sheep in a different direction. So I didn't die and get trampled, which was pretty cool. But I always remembered that because one of the things my dad always said growing up is sometimes you got to be lucky. So I was really lucky that they had this awesome little sheepdog that prevented me from getting trampled.
So was that the moment that you recognized you don't want to be a shepherd?
No, I think I knew that from like the first time I ever went to the Bronx Zoo, that I was not, shepherding was not in my future. I like dogs and all, but no shepherding. But I did, it really drove home the point that sometimes in life you got to be lucky.
All right, so 7, 8 years old, your life is saved by a dog.
Yeah.
Okay.
Love dogs. Big dog guy.
Right. You should be at this point.
Oh,
okay.
yeah.
And thank God for that dog because otherwise we wouldn't have the honor of being here together today. So yes, whatever that dog's name is, Sure, he's not around anymore. Rest in peace, the Kaplan saver.
He definitely went to heaven,
He definitely went to heaven.
as all dogs do.
Right, all dogs do. So 7, 8 years old, your life is saved by this dog.
Yeah, it was pretty cool.
So that's a pretty amazing moment to have, right? I mean, one, it taught you that, like your dad said, right? Sometimes it's better to be lucky than good. I think that's a great statement that everyone thinks, the harder you work, the more successful you are. Hard work plays a role, but a lot of times you have to get lucky in that scenario.
Well, one of the phrases that I heard early on in the insurance world when I was selling investments in insurance is that luck is just in business. Luck is a function of how hard you work.
That plus, I think I would add to that it's also kind of that be in the right place at the right time. It's also be everywhere. Back then it was harder than it is now with the internet and social media, but be everywhere at any time. And that goes to how hard you work. Like, how often are you going to go to a networking event? How often are you going to go somewhere after work to try to meet somebody?
Are you going to make those extra 5 calls after you did your however many, you do 5 more, right? Because you never know what conversation will happen, whether it's the networking event or picking up the phone or sending the emails, or now it's creating the videos on social media, et cetera, right?
Yeah, it goes back to that, like 5 to 9. So between 9 to 5, small businesses, local businesses, we have to compete with all the big conglomerates. Well, when they go home at 5 o'clock, what we do from 5 to 9 is what makes us better than those, right? We have that extra hour. You're talking about 5 phone calls or call California like we did back in the mobile real estate days.
Mm-hmm.
But I want to go back to that moment when you're 8 years old, because you brought it up and it's an impactful moment for you. And with that same question of how did a moment from your childhood shape you to who you are today? What did that moment mean to you now that you look back at it at 8 years old, being saved by that sheepdog on this family vacation with you, mom, dad, and your sister?
Well, I think it's a really good lesson that all of your decisions have some consequence. And whether you intend it or not, if you're not thinking about what those consequences can be, they might be something that you don't want, right? Like being unaware of how sheep react to a little boy, I had no idea that they might all turn and run in unison. Now that I have that experience, if my son goes towards a flock of sheep on a hill, I'm going to be like, hey, buddy, why don't you come over here? There's no dogs around, right? Like,
I love that, though. I love what you said. I think it's really important. Every action has consequences.
Right. And I think, you kind of know it instinctively. Like, we grew up in the same neighborhood. So growing up in the Bronx in the 80s and 90s, you had to be aware of what was going on around you, or at least you should be aware of what was going on around you. And so part of it, I think, was already innately there, but you get to a place like Costa Rica and you're in the hills and it's beautiful and you're like, oh, I don't have to worry about anything here. But no, it's just different worries, right? It's different consequences because you're not in a neighborhood full of buildings and cars and pit bulls and whatever other things were going on at the time. You're in a farm with sheep.
Lions, tigers, and bears in that concrete jungle.
They look cute, but when 300 of them run at the same time in the same direction, it has a different impact.
I don't think people actually remember. Most people, I don't think, remember the 80s and 90s in New York City, more or less the Bronx, where like we grew up. So talk about that for a second. So obviously the sheep are dangerous, but
yeah, I mean, listen, I wouldn't change it for the world. I think it was an amazing place to grow up and evolve, and it was a very interesting snapshot in time, right? Like, I went to public school, but the public school I went to was a charter school, and it was brand new, and my dad was involved in getting it set up with all these educational people in the Bronx, and it was called the Bronx New School, and it was in a church basement on Fordham Road and Marion Avenue. So instead of going to PS 95, which was right up the street from where we lived, I went all the way over to Fordham and Marion on a bus. And the first couple years the school was in existence, it was in a church basement, and it didn't really have a playground. So they would walk us from the church down Fordham Road, down Webster to a playground for recess, which was very cool. But in those 2 blocks walking down Fordham Road in 88 and 89, you got the pawn shops, the record stores.
The height of the crack epidemic.
Well,
the crack epidemic was right there.
I'll
at the
get
height
to
of
that.
it,
But Fordham Road was a major commerce hub, right?
Yeah.
So you had all these stores, jewelry in the windows, clothing, record shops, you name it. The speakers that were as big as us on the sidewalk blasting hip hop. Remember, hip hop was kind of just getting started at that time. So it was all you heard in the cars that were driving up and down, the speakers blasting. There was guys with 3-card Monte tables on the side of the street, right? And people gambling in the middle of the day. And then you get down to the park, and, you know, some days you wouldn't be able to drink out of the water fountain in the park because there was a person who may or may not have been a crackhead taking a bath or cleaning themselves up. So there was a lot going on, right? And then, you know, you're in a field full of grass with some sheep. You're like, oh, there's nothing that could happen wrong here, right? Big contrast. But I mean, growing up in the Bronx in the 80s and 90s, I think was pretty fun. It was definitely a moment in time that I think has impacted a lot of things culturally that now are worldwide, hip hop specifically, fashion. You know, you mentioned the crack epidemic. It was going on then. So a lot of crazy stuff happening in New York at that time. But I think it was, you know, certainly very interesting.
It was a crazy time that taught us a lot of stuff. So back then,
you learn a lot quickly. That's for sure.
Yeah, you do.
You know,
back then we'd arguably had the worst mayor in New York City historically. Post being, we learned a lot, right, with David Dinkins. And this is not a political show, but considering what we just learned, that Florida might actually have a New York tax. Or the crazy memes that you might see on Twitter or X surrounding Florida with the election of the new mayor. So as a Bronx native, and as they know and they say, or for those who don't know, you can take the boy out of the Bronx, but not the Bronx out of the boy. So in the inner Bronx self right now with the new mayor and all the Twitter wars between the governors of Florida and Texas versus New York, what's your feeling on that?
So my feeling on New York City is that it is in for and has been under a lot of pressure. I think that New York City, as great as it is, and I love New York City, I am very happy that I no longer live there. I think that the election of Mandami is a clear indication of where a lot of people stand in terms of not feeling included in capitalism. And I think that's really sad. I think it's a shame for New York because I don't think he's going to be good for the city. But I think the last couple mayors haven't been great either, to be perfectly honest. And as someone who did business in New York City as an independent business owner for 16 years up until, you know, from 2009 or 2008 until 2024, you know, New York City became an increasingly harder and harder place to do business if you were an independent business owner. They made it extremely difficult. It's very expensive. Prices continue to rise. And I think that both from a business standpoint and from a resident standpoint, everyone is fed up. And so I understand why this guy got elected. It's because the residents are fed up with the increasing costs, the skyrocketing rents, the just amount of money it takes to live comfortably in New York City is ridiculous. At the same time, I think that what this new mayor is proposing to do is not going to fix any of it. It's just going to make it worse. So I myself am a capitalist over any political party. I think that capitalism is the only answer. And I think that instead of trying to tell people that, we're going to give them a bunch of free stuff, we should find ways to get them included in the system so that they have a stake in capitalism and in the economy and move more towards meritocracy. But that's my opinion, and I know everyone doesn't share that.
Well, let's go to an opinion that I think is well, as a CEO of Win Local, right? You're an expert on local businesses. So what advice would you give to local businesses now in New York City of how to manage and market their business?
So if we're talking about how they should market their business, I think that, that's a lot easier than telling them blanket statement how they should manage their business.
Fair.
Because,
Manage is different from industry.
and because
but marketing
if we're talking about true locally owned and operated businesses that are similar to, Win Local or Share Company or any of the things that you and I have done in the past, right? Then they should be free to manage their business the way they want. And part of having a business and taking that risk is being able to call those shots. So they should do what they feel is in the best interest of their business. That said, there's more than enough data to show that what businesses should be leaning into, what they should be doing, is increasingly digital, it's increasingly automated, and it's leveraging the efficiencies that these digital channels, these automated tools, today's most popular technologies can provide to them, because ultimately that will allow them to scale in ways they haven't in the past. I'll give you a great example. All right. So as business owners, let's say you are in the business of a service business, right? So you provide services to homeowners in New York City.
like a plumber.
Let's say you're a plumber. Great idea, right? So to make money as a plumber, you have to install new plumbing, fix broken plumbing, go see people and provide them quotes, get people to call you to come in to do the quotes. So you have this list of things before you get to actually get paid, right? As with any service business owner. And you can only individually go see X number of people in a day to give them a quote, right? Your time, we all have the same 24 hours in a day. So you can only get in front of so many people. The beauty of the world we live in today is that when I started, right, if I wanted to go see someone and schedule an appointment with someone to go sell them something like plumbing or insurance or roofing or whatever, I had to sit there, pick up the phone for hours, call these people one-on-one, and get them to agree to let me come in, right? The same analogy for a plumber back in the day, right? They put their information in the yellow pages. They did mail. They did different things to get people to call them, right? Today,
You're talking about the yellow pages that I used to sit on
the
just
book.
to be taller. Right?
So there
Like,
used to be a book that was called the Yellow Pages because it was yellow, and businesses would list themselves in this book so that if you needed a plumber or an electrician, you would go in and you would look them up and you would have their phone number to be able to call them. Obviously, that doesn't exist anymore, but that's why there's so many AAA electric or AAA plumbing, because you wanted to be first in the Yellow Pages.
Shout out to the Yellow Pages for naming themselves the Yellow Pages and producing a book of Yellow Pages to get it there. So good for them. But I have a question for you on all the things that you're saying, because I feel like local businesses get overwhelmed, right? To your point about the plumber that you just made, there's so many things as a plumber I have to do before I can even get to the invoicing you as the customer, right? And then there's all these crazy things of automation, as you mentioned, and the digital world and social media and AI. And it's
a
like
lot.
it's a lot.
It's a lot.
It's so overwhelming
Absolutely.
that I think that people fear it. In your expert opinion, where do you start? What's the first thing you tell me to do as the plumber, right? Other than plumbing, is to
Identify who you want to do business with. The first
Okay.
thing that any local business should do, in my opinion, and we've helped hundreds, if not thousands, of local businesses by now do this, is hone in and identify who is their ideal target customer. So for a plumber, if you're a plumber in the Bronx, it might be homeowners who either own a house or an apartment or a co-op in these 3 zip codes. Because once you define who your customer is and who you want to work with and who is most likely to want to work with you, then everything else inevitably becomes easier. From your marketing to your sales and phone calls and organization, everything becomes easier because now you don't have to have the chaos of wondering who your client is. So the first step, in my opinion, is always to figure out who your ideal customer is and then build everything else around serving that customer.
Yeah, but take our zip code of 10463 back in the
Yep.
day. If I knew I was going to serve that area, right? I mean, sure, I can do a mailer to those people, but how do I reach them digitally?
Yeah,
How do you get there? Is there a way to get their information?
absolutely. So one, there's more data available now than I think there probably ever has been, and that's both a good thing and a bad thing. It's a bad thing because our private information is now often very readily available publicly. So you can find out who they are. You can also use platforms like Facebook and Instagram and TikTok and YouTube and Google My Business and all of these different digital tools that people are using to get out there and essentially stretch the confines of time. What do I mean by that? Well, the average US adult spends over 2 hours a day now on social media platforms combined, which is nuts. Because if you spent 2 hours a day on social media every day, that's 30 total days a year that you would have spent just scrolling. Now, when you think about that, you think, wow, at least I think, wow, that's insane. I should probably scroll a little less. At the same time, if I'm a business owner, I'm like, okay, that's a huge amount of time that I can capitalize on where I know people are spending time and attention and I can put my message in front of them. And so now I have a couple choices. I can create content for platforms like Facebook and Instagram and TikTok and YouTube and post that organically so people can see it, right? And if people see and watch my videos about plumbing, maybe they'll contact me when they need a plumber. I can create videos not just about plumbing, but things about the market that I serve. So I might be a plumber, but I could talk about the restaurants in the area that I've done plumbing for or that have great water pressure when I wash my hands in the bathroom or whatever. Like there's no limit or confine to the things that a business owner could create content about. That takes time, energy, and resources, of course.
Yep.
Separately, you can leverage the paid side of the platforms to run paid ads to the people that you want to serve, right? The people you've identified as being your target customer. So instead of, or in addition to creating a ton of organic content, you can take content that you've created and post organically that's done well and run it as a paid ad to this audience of people.
Wait, hold on a second. I think this is an important factor. Are you saying that I can choose a zip code? I can give you a zip code and the people that I want to serve. And I want them just to be homeowners in zip code because I want the decision makers, right? Because the Bronx obviously has a lot of renters. So I want the decision makers. So I can come to you as a plumber and say, all right, Seth, listen, I need some help. And here's the target audience I want. Here's the zip code, and here's my target. I want homeowners, homeowners in that zip code. You can get that data and or leverage these platforms to put me in front of just those people?
Correct. So the
Wow.
targeting capabilities of the platforms today are so sophisticated that between the data that's available and the algorithms that are present on the platforms, you can put your paid content in front of exactly the people that you want to do business with more cost effectively than pretty much any other form of advertising. I'll give you a great example, right? And I like to think of social media today and these platforms, as we keep referring to them, as today's TV, right? Because if 20 years ago, when the Yellow Pages was around, we went to a business owner and said, hey, you could run commercials on TV, right? They'd be like, no, I can't. It's too expensive, right? Well, today, everyone has a broadcast channel. Your broadcast channel is your public profile page, right? It's not just reserved for CBS and Fox and NBC anymore. I have a public profile page. That's my broadcast channel. I can broadcast as much content as I want on that channel, and I can do it ad nauseum, right? Commercials on TV used to be really expensive. You had to reach a lot of people, and they might not all be people you want to do business with. But big brands did it because they knew that if I sell cereal, everyone buys cereal, right? So I can run a commercial in New York City.
Ad. It's easy.
It's a blanket ad. It's same for everyone.
But you need a ton of money for that.
You need a ton of money, right? Well, for a plumber, now you can run commercials on these platforms really cost effectively. We have a home service partner whose territory, they're with a franchise brand, right? So they bought a franchise to do, let's call it electric, and they have 17 zip codes in their territory. And they just opened up, and so they wanted to get the word out that they're now open for business, because you can't sell your products and services if no one knows you exist.
Right.
So where do you start? All right, let's figure out who your customer is and tell them that you're open. That's a good place to start. So they ran ads on platforms like Facebook and Instagram, and they did it only in their 17 zip codes to the people they wanted to do business with. And in, I think it was a 15 or 21 day campaign just to get started, they reached over 17,000 homeowners. They reached those homeowners over 25,000 times, and their cost to reach the homeowner one time was less than a penny, right?
Oh.
So there's literally nothing else you can do. Like, you can't even buy, back in the day, you used to be able to go some places and get like a piece of gum for a penny or a nickel, right? Like
a nickel, maybe. A penny was like, yeah, okay, let's
right. There were penny candy stores at one point.
Yeah.
That
for our parents, maybe.
Right. Or like at the Jersey Shore or something like that, right? But yeah, for literally a fraction of a penny, you can now put your message as a business owner in front of your customer multiple times over a 15-day, 21-day, 30-day period. Like, the opportunity to promote your business today has never been greater or more cost-effective if you know how to leverage these tools.
Okay, so this case study that you just mentioned where I can reach people for a penny.
Yes.
I just want to give the audience break that down. So I'm an electrician, your client. I reached 17,000 homeowners. So it was an audience that I gave you, here's the area I want to reach. You narrowed it down to just homeowners. You then reach these homeowners over 25,000 times, and it only cost me a penny per time that I was in front of them?
It actually cost a fraction of a penny. Don't quote me on this. We can certainly link to a case study in the show notes if you want, and we can put that together. But I believe the cost per view of that ad was about a third of a penny. So,
wow.
I mean, that doesn't even really exist, right? Like,
Yeah.
You can't get less expensive than that. And I believe they were only spending $10 a day.
All right, wait a minute. So we're not talking about ads as a $5,000 budget per month. You're talking $10 a day. Yeah. A venti, Starbucks, whatever the pumpkin spice lattes are going on right now.
In some cases, less than that. Yeah.
That's insanity to even think about that. Instead of having a Starbucks pumpkin spice latte, you can put that out there to you guys. And from there, you can reach actual customers. It's better investing. I always like those things on, I show them to the kids, right? Like on Instagram or TikTok. They say, okay, here's the person that buys the Starbucks and here's the person that buys the Starbucks stock.
Right.
It's the same example. Instead of buying that Starbucks, they can give that $10 to you and you can drastically change their life, not 20 years from now, but 20 days from now.
Yeah. I mean, it's really amazing what's possible today in terms of reaching the people you want to do business with. And going back to what you said at the beginning, right? Or where does someone start? This is why it's examples like this, which is exactly why business owners need to be prioritizing digital and leveraging these platforms, because there's literally not a more cost-effective way to reach the exact group of people that you want to do business with than doing this. So if you're not doing this for at least a significant portion of your marketing budget, then what are you doing? Because then it becomes the conversation of, well, okay, you're spending, let's just use an example, right? $1.50 per mailer to reach 5,000 homes. So that's $7,500, and you get one chance at them per month. So you spent $7,500 to reach 5,000 homes, when this guy over here spent, let's say it was a 30-day campaign, right? And again, we can link to the case study in the show notes, so we'll get the exact numbers. But let's say they spent $10 a day for 30 days and still only reached 17,000 people, but they also only spent $300, and they reached them more than once. So like,
Yeah.
when you
25,000 times. I mean,
when people tell me I'm going to do direct mail, I'm like, that's great. If it's working, you should do it. But it's not only direct mail. It's okay, if I'm doing direct mail and this, right? Like, it's a combination of the two things. Because if it were me, I would say let the digital inform the offer that you put on the direct mail. A lot of times, and I'm sure as a homeowner, you know this, you get a ton of stuff in the mail, right? And sometimes you'll get a postcard. I've seen these specifically where it's like 5 different offers, right? The roofer gives you get 10% off if you do this, and it's 15% off if you do roof and gutters. And he's got 5 different offers trying to offer you a percentage off. Okay, well, with that one mail piece, you have no idea which offer performs the best, and not all of them. If it goes as high as 25% off, then some of them are inevitably going to be less profitable for you. So why wouldn't you test the offers digitally, where you could spend $10, $15 a day for 30 days and then put the direct mail budget behind the offer that's the best responded to?
Right, double down on it.
Right.
It's a great example. Yeah.
Yeah, so like, that's how I approach it. That's how we approach it when we talk to our business partners around the country, and help them not only understand the options that are available, but also how to leverage these options to make more informed decisions on their other more traditional marketing activities. Because I'm not sitting here trying to say that you should do all digital, right? Like, you should do events in your local market, and you should go out and have coffee with people, and you should, maybe do some direct mail. That's a big maybe, put an asterisk next to that, right? Like, but there's a lot of different things you can do on the marketing front. But today, digital should absolutely be part of it.
Yeah, I mean, after those numbers, you're silly not to. It's one night out that you might take your family to dinner, or like we talked about, the Starbucks cup of coffee a day.
Right.
So listen, I feel like everybody needs to at least hear this and know this. How do they get a hold of you? Tell everybody how they get a hold of you for questions and things like that. Because that case study actually blew my mind, where, to your point, it's a very good example. I'm targeting only people that I can see, which I don't think many local businesses even know exist, right? Because we're used to blanketing. Mm-hmm. And then to even try something for $10 a day. Like, I recommend every business right now just spend $10 a day for a month. Try it. It's $300. I mean, it's if you're in business, $300 is something you should be able to try to test out, because it's the inexpensive marketing that happens. So how do people reach you?
Yeah, absolutely. You can find me on all social media platforms, but the easiest way to reach me is to text Seth, S-E-T-H, to the number 88500. You'll get my business card back on your phone. It'll link to my calendar, our website, my social media. Again, text Seth to 88500.
All right, we'll make sure we put that in the comments as well. And if you share that case study, we'll definitely put that there. All right, so before I let you go, give me one of your favorite quotes.
One of my favorite quotes other than sometimes in life you got to be lucky, which we talked about earlier, is...
I think I'm lucky that dogs love you, because that sheep story was kind of scary for a
I mean,
7-year-old kid.
And, as a side note, that was only one of the 2 times I almost died on that trip. So shout out to my parents for taking me to Costa Rica as an 8-year-old.
All right, back to your favorite quote.
Back to one of my other favorite quotes. Oh, man. And we already said luck is just a function of how hard you work. So that's 2 out of my top 3 right there.
Yeah, two types of luck. It's very interesting.
Oh, and so I would be remiss if I didn't add the quote that I say with my children every day, every morning, without fail, on the way to school, which is, today's a great day to have a great day.
I love that quote. It's actually one of my favorites. So today's a great day to have a great day. On that note, today is a great day to have a great day. And I thank Seth for joining us, my brother from another mother, my business partner, my longtime friend, someone that I couldn't be where I'm at today without. And I'm very grateful he's on here. Thank you for joining us at Relive the Moments, everybody. Make sure that you like and subscribe. It helps people hear these stories and learn some stuff. This was a really exciting episode. I think we learned a lot, and I'm excited to continue it. And thanks, Seth, for joining us.
It has been a pleasure. Thank you for inviting me to relive these moments with you, buddy. It's been a pleasure to be here. I thought you'd never ask.